Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. So I want to bring this up because you have a good friend, Danny Parkins, who I saw was on your show, First Things First. Danny just sent me his book. I'm going to read that, flying to Chicago this weekend. So, and I'm going to be...
Since you mention it, that's so funny. It's in my backpack right here. Give it a little plug. Pipeline to the Pros.
Yep, I'm reading
it. About how there's a disproportionate amount of D3 basketball former D3 basketball players as coaches and GMs in the NBA. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm reading it, flying to Chicago Friday. So we both love Chicago. I'm going to a Celtics-Bulls game. I'm considering buying season tickets to the Chicago Bulls, because I'm spending more and more time in Chicago, which my wife loves, and I love too. I don't love January, but I love Chicago. But it's interesting because of Caleb Williams. And one of the things about our business, and I've never, you know how some things, I see certain things a certain way, and I can't imagine somebody seeing things any other way. We have these things in life. Like, I can't imagine, I am just not a romantic. If I get new information, I always will have a new opinion. I think it's literally, it goes against, it's intellectually not dishonest. I really think less of people who don't change opinions based on new information. So in a prime example, I get crap a little in Chicago because I'm like, anybody with a functional brain, if you were a quarterback and you were his dad, you'd be like, I don't feel good about Chicago, like at all. They've never had a great quarterback. The coach is a defensive coach, a first-time, coordinator with him. But then Chicago gets Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett, Swift.
DeAndre Swift.
Okay, who, by the way, is not McCaffrey, but one of the best pass-catching running backs. So he's a great outlet. So it's Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett, and then DeAndre Swift, and then DJ Moore, and now it's a veteran receiver with him. And now I look at it and I think, oh, shit. This is now better than Houston with C.J. Stroud, and I think Caleb's a better quarterback, and he's a much better prospect than Justin Fields. So I look at it now and I think, oh, this is the opposite of Carolina. This is kind of a
they won 7 games. The part that I don't understand about the Bears' skepticism with Caleb is, even if you think he is just the mill number 1 overall pick, I think he's exceptional. You think he's exceptional. But if he is just your league at, NFL average number 1 overall pick, those guys are worth 2 or 3 wins.
No question.
But he's not joining a 2-win team. He's joining a 7-win team.
Yeah.
That is we were just talking about what the team drafting at 9 is that can either add Roma Dunze or Brock Bowers or their left tackle or the best defensive player in the draft. No, I think Caleb is exceptional, and I also think he's walking into a great situation. And so on our show today, we asked the question, Caleb Williams getting too much, not enough, or just the right amount of hype? And I said not enough. And Bruin Wild said I'm crazy. I'm like, okay, let me give you some context just for my opinion. I think he is best prospect, not the best player, the best prospect since Luck. Yeah. How much hype was Luck getting? Removed from winning a league MVP and going to a Super Bowl, the Indianapolis Colts told Peyton Manning to hit the road. This guy's coming in. The controversy, whether or not Chicago should tell Justin Fields to leave. So yeah, I think that this guy is not getting enough hype. The fact within Chicago, and Danny would tell you this. It's funny you mentioned Danny. Danny is dealing with right now the first times in his radio career in Chicago where a majority of people are hate him.
Yeah.
Because the fans there love Fields. And they're like, you fucking turned on him, man. Like, you were his guy. And Danny, I think, is just seeing it soberly. And again, guys, remove your from this. We just saw Justin Fields' value was to the entire NFL. And the answer is right around a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
If the Bears said number 1 pick auction, This year, they would get offered 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and a couple players. So the world says one guy's a better asset. Your eyes tell you all of it. And I just think that Caleb is set up in a way where very rare for a number one pick to walk into a team that is not horrible.
Yeah, and also
you're normally walking into a terrible team.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember, it's a division that doesn't have elite defenses. You're not walking into the AFC North where it's Baltimore twice a year and Pittsburgh and Tomlin twice a year and Myles Garrett twice a year. These teams, it's the best offensive division in football. I mean, if Sam Darnold is close to as good as Baker was in Tampa last year, 28 touchdowns, 10 picks, 64% completion percentage, has everybody looked at Minnesota's roster? The best receiver, top 2 tackle, top 5 back, top 6 tight end, great second receiver. O-line's like 8-10 in the league. So Green Bay, offensive coach, tons of offensive twitchiness at receiver, tight end. Detroit, stacked. I mean, they have the best O-line in football. So Chicago, Caleb's not going to face these just overwhelming pass rushers. There's an argument the Bears have the best defense in the division, certainly with Eberflus, Sweat, Jalen Johnson. So even if he doesn't win, Justin Fields never had a 5-game streak where you were like, that's it. I think Caleb Williams very quickly will have streaks. He'll have bad Sundays. You will. This is a fast league. I think Caleb very quickly you will watch and go, oh, that's it. Like Jordan Love from Thanksgiving on, you would just watch and go, whether he's going to be great or not, that's a franchise quarterback. He's got the whip, the movement, he sees the field. So I think Caleb very quickly you will identify, because we kept waiting for it. Think about this, Nick. Chicago wanted Justin to work because they could accumulate so many picks with Caleb Williams. They were waiting for a 6-game streak this year to end all doubt.
So that is the still, listen, I think there is the league. If I were running teams, I would have valued Justin a little more than the league did, just because in a world where Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, and in a world where these superhero quarterbacks exist, I value a guy, even if it only has a 10% chance, where he has a 1 in 10 chance of being a star, more than I value a guy whose floor is higher but ceiling is very defined. And so that is when I see Gardner Minshew is more valuable to the league than Justin Fields. I just disagree with that. Like, I understand why people okay, we know Justin never puts it together. Gardner's better than him. But we also know Gardner could never be great. And I haven't closed the book on the possibility that Justin's great. So I want to be clear on that. But if Justin had just shown, okay, consistently going to be the 15th best quarterback in football, you can make an argument Chicago would have traded the pick. Would have said, we can have multiple first-round picks, consecutive drafts. But you know what I mean? By trading this pick and doing that.
They were dying. They were dying for a 6-game stretch somewhere starting before Thanksgiving and ending December 1st. They were dying for it.
And just to be like, we're going to do the Niners model, which is we are going to have superstars everywhere, except we're not going to have to pay them Bosa prices because we're just going to have multiple first-round picks in the next 4 drafts. And Justin didn't put it together. Like there is, that's just the reality of the situation. Now, let's say Carolina had won 4 games.
Right.
And Chicago was sitting at 5. To me, is that now it's another question. Now it's like, okay, do I want to draft J.J. McCarthy? Or do I want to add, a superstar player, stick with my quarterback? That's a different thing. But Caleb is a great player. Checks every single box you have at the pros, except for he's probably an inch shorter than you'd like. But he doesn't play short. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's never like, oh, he couldn't see that guy because
Yeah.
of his height. And so, listen, I think it's a no-brainer, and I am so glad that finally one of these guys is going to the NFC.
Yeah.
It's good for the league that the top. I hope Washington doesn't miss on their pick. I hope that whoever the second best quarterback is, Washington gets him because we need better quarterbacks in the NFC and we need some of the fewer great quarterbacks in the AFC. Like the NFL would have been better. Carolina got it right.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud were in the NFC
Yeah.
because you need more quarterbacks over there,
Yeah.
and you got too many in the AFC.
Yeah. And I also think, one of the things that I think is fascinating about Caleb Williams is that, and I think I've told you this story when I interviewed a couple of times President Obama. They give you about 10 minutes to the second. That's what they give you. And then they cut you off. And so the second time I interviewed him, I asked him a question that he clearly wanted to talk about because he gave a long, well thought out answer. And my question was, you're the first president in my life to deal with the vile nature, the aggressive attack dog style of social media. Jimmy Carter didn't deal with this. Reagan, Clinton, nobody dealt with this. George Bush. And it does, if not change policy, it does change the momentum and the direction of day-to-day operations when you're on the defense because of social media and reacting to it. And the reason I bring this up is, so I always looked at what he was dealing with, having to have a beer with Joe the plumber because something went sideways on social media, which is, I mean, that guy was a dolt. But the point being is, Reagan wouldn't have had to do that. He'd have to have dinner with Tip O'Neill, not a beer with Joe the plumber, because you get this avalanche downhill on social media. So it's a reality of the stakes now, but what it creates, these micro avalanches on policy decisions or just a quip from cable TV. So similarly, Caleb Williams is the first NIL superstar. And so he paints his fingernails, or he jumps into the crowd to see his mother, or he's moody on the sidelines. No, he gets that because he makes more than 90% of the coaches in college football. And I'm going to give him that because I remember my first contract and I thought I was king shit. And I was making nothing. And so a 22-year-old, so I look at Caleb, whenever I hear the pushback on, there's a little ego, I'm like, have you read Twitter?
So here's a counter.
Yeah.
So here's maybe this is too galaxy brain.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just too pro Caleb. But here would be my argument as to why that's actually good. Caleb's one of the first superstar football draft picks that we know what he's like with money, for good or for bad. It's so that you understand what I mean? Like it's not as, you don't worry. Oh, when this guy gets, his first $1 million check, how is he going to go off the deep end? Is he gonna, you know what I mean? However, millions of dollars were going to affect him, they already have. And so people can take shots at it, but it's a variable removed. You know what Caleb Williams is like rich because he's rich already. You know what I mean? And maybe it's not exactly the way you would like him to act. But again, you said when you forgot your first contract, I've told you this before. I've never ever judged when people talk about athletes blowing money because I won 50 grand on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and I blew it immediately. And I was smart and should have known better, and it was only 50,000 when I was 22. I can't imagine if I had, got 10 million what I would have thought. But we know what Caleb is like with money. You don't have to worry about that. I think that's actually a plus.
Yeah, anytime you're the first dealing with something, it's difficult, right? Like sometimes, I think about this all the time. I was kind of a talented workaholic mess until I was like 33 with my kids. And by the way, dad was a doctor. Mom worked in the school, lived in the same house, no abuse in my life. That was a bit of a mess. How many athletes don't have that structure or don't have somebody in there. I mean, I've always known what to do, for instance, with money. My dad was in the market. My dad had doctor friends. I was a mess until I was 33. And I think we forget this. So now you have some of these kids and these NIL kids, they get money, or these young athletes. Oh, I always say, I don't know what I would have done with 100,000. Caleb made like 4.5 million.
So that's my point. I do know what, at 22 with a college degree, with educated, smart parents, successful parents, I would do with 50,000. And the answer is gamble and go to the gentleman's club every single night till it was gone, which is what I did. It was gone. I bought a television and nothing and good times for 200 days. Won some money, lost some money. The nights I won, I took my friends out. When people are like, oh, these guys are paying for everyone else's lifestyle. Of course, because the moment you can afford the steakhouse, you don't want to go to Fuddruckers anymore. You just don't. Right. And nobody wants to eat alone. So guess what? We're all going, it's on me. It was, again, I'm not an idiot. I knew 50 grand at $800 a night. 50 grand is not going to last that long, boys. But it always felt like it would last longer than it did. So, yeah, I think people that I'm not big into being judgmental on early 20s.
Yeah.
Because anyone if you had all your shit together in your early 20s,
you're born.
God bless you. Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah.